And now I'm honored to introduce our graduation speaker, Dan Dukov, who graduated from our department in 1982, which is exactly 40 years ago. So after graduation, he has been active in Boulder tech startup scene for around 30 years and switching to tutoring math afterwards. So then, please.
Can I use a speaker stand so I can have? Well, I guess so. Just a moment, technical. Otherwise, I'll just. Hello, can you hear me? Yes? Okay, we'll go. Well, first of all, from the class of 1982, CU Math, to the class of 2022, 40 years later, congratulations. Wow. When I think of the effort that I went through to get to this point 40 years ago, I'm very, very proud of you all. Well, many years ago, I came across a parable about aspirations, curiously enough, from a math book about set theory and logic. The book was The Foundations of Computing by Thierry Shira. I'm going to paraphrase what he said. Long ago, a princess asked a wise elder to summarize his essential aspiration in life. The wise man obliged, but when he brought his answer to the princess, she asked for a more concise summary. This exchange was repeated a few times. Whenever the wise man complied with the latest request, the princess kept on asking for an even shorter version. Eventually, she asked, "Can you express your meaning in just one word?" After pondering the question again, once more the wise man obliged, and the word that he offered was today. Now, I think that this meaning says that past knowledge and the ability to predict the future can only provide support for the need that we have to live in the here and now of today. The book's author then goes on and asks a similar question about mathematics. Is there one word for the essence of math? He answers in the affirmative, and the word that he suggests is generality. He argues that we do math when we generalize to describe common properties. One of the most remarkable things about generality is that these generalities tend to beget larger generalities, more encompassing generalities. Generalities are sort of like natural numbers. There are successors upon successors of generalities, each larger than the last. For me, the one word for mathematics, generality, works. And I like this one word question. It's a good way to gut check if you actually have a sense of what you're talking about. Two ideas that have been very important to me are good politics and good parenting. And I've applied the one word question to both of them. My one word for good politics is collaboration. Good politics happens when people find ways to respectfully achieve a consensus. The opposite of collaboration being coercion. My one word for good parenting is balance. Good parenting happens when parents achieve a balance between unconditional love and setting appropriate boundaries. Now, I've had a wonderful career lasting more than 30 years in software development. having the privilege of helping to create small companies and watch some of them die, most of them, but some of them flourish. That's the way it is. During that time, I've also tutored math as a volunteer, and for the last 12 years, I've tutored math professionally. And over the years, I've thought about the one word for good math tutoring. Since I've been tutoring math one way or another for all these decades, my one word has evolved over the years. As a freshly minted CU math grad back in '82, the operative words were exploration, innovation, achievement, success. But as I look back, what I remember most fondly are the tutoring moments that felt like acts of service, the moments of shared learning, where the roles of teacher and students become more fluid. As they say, teach once, learn twice. So I'd like to share with you when I decided that math needed to be an important part of my life. It was an unusual situation. It was back in 1972. I was a senior in the social ecology department at the University of California, Irvine. We were politically active back then because we were threatened with getting drafted and going to war in Vietnam. In those days, I was organizing protests. I helped to organize one protest march that almost caused serious injuries. Anti-protesters tried to run us down with their cars. It was my first serious attempt to affirm something larger than myself. I was trying to affirm my belief in nonviolence. And to my shock and disappointment, my efforts actually led to more violence. I was certainly well-intentioned, but my ability to think things through just wasn't there. I didn't know what the hell I was doing, and it was getting dangerous for other people. Well, it was about that time that my draft board informed me that I was needed in the US Army and that I should arrange my affairs in preparation for being inducted into the armed forces. The draft lottery back then involved this process where a random selection of numbered ping pong balls would determine our fates. Each ball was labeled with a number from 1 to 365 to designate our birthdays. And for the year 1972, the unlucky men whose birthdays appeared on the first 111 balls chosen would be shipped off to Vietnam. Doesn't that sound strange to think about today? Ping pong balls determining one's fate, perhaps one's early death. So, as fate would have it, on the very last draft lottery, my number was chosen. And there I was, literally, on the last bus of Vietnam draftees. We were being shipped off to the US Army boot camp in Fort Ord, California. Well, in less than 2 weeks of boot camp, I folded up my uniform and gave it back to my commanding officer. I declared that I was a conscientious objector and that boot camp itself was a dangerous place, and that for me, the only safe place in this man's army was in the jail. Indeed, I was scared for my life to live in those barracks. You see, in those days, there were draftees who traded some serious jail time for service in the Army. And some of these jail-diverted draftees were violent. Fights were breaking out in the barracks between rival factions. I'm talking about knife fights where knives were fashioned from towels wrapped around shards of glass that were from broken bathroom mirrors. Well, like I said, I was safer in jail. And it was in the Fort Ord jail that I had my math epiphany. I would study math. I had a vision that I wanted to be a more self-consistent person, and that math provided a great example of verifiable self-consistency. I thought that if I studied self-consistent ideas, I would become more self-consistent. That was my vision. And I restarted my math education with a 9th grade algebra book that I borrowed from the jail library. Well, thankfully, after a few more weeks in jail, the war was winding down and the US Army decided to release me with an honorable discharge as a conscientious objector, no charges filed. From that moment of epiphany forward, math has been a huge part of my life. Learning math affirms the value of acquiring verifiable knowledge. Tutoring math in a spirit of patient collaboration affirms the dignity of the learning process. Recording in progress. Please stay seated. To affirm, affirmation. I've thought about that word with friends over the years, including my good friend Homer Page, who first suggested it as the one-word essence for a good life. And I think that affirmation is the one word that I choose to describe good math tutoring. So, here's where things stand 40 years later. Learning and tutoring are one and the same. Teach once, learn twice. Learning and tutoring math, at best, is an honorable act of service. It affirms the worth of math as a verifiable, self-consistent body of knowledge. It affirms that humility comes from making mistake after mistake after mistake, so long as you learn from it. It affirms the bonds of affection and mutual respect that can flourish when we learn together. So, what's important to you? What's your one word? Thank you.